Us now to get a response on this and lots of other things is my dear friend and hero, Art Laffer, former Reagan economic advisor and Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient and co-author of Taxes Have Consequences. That's coming out September 27th. I mean, Art, you have to go from the Laffer curve to, what did you say, January 6th and Buffalo. I mean, only a really sick mind would come up with that. And, you know, I know you were concerned about it, and I think it's important, and I'm going to give you open field running. What do you have to say to this jerk?
Well, unfortunately, from Paul Krugman, it's expected. And it's just the type of slur that when they don't have facts, when they don't have truth, when they don't have anything else, then what they do is they say things like this. It is, as you say, it's scurrilous. And I am surprised that the New York Times, in its editorial capacity, did not knock out that sentence. I mean, it is inflammatory. But Paul Krugman does that a lot. And unfortunately, I don't feel the same way about him. I think he's a bad economist. I don't think he's a very good guy, but I don't think he's causing the world to come to an end. It's unfortunate that the New York Times gives him such license to do this stuff, but there it is. Elon Musk, I would say your hero is Elon Musk. Mine is too. Elon Musk can expect this type of stuff to come from him as well. He'll be getting a lot of this from a lot of different sources, as I have now for something like 50 years. I can't tell you how many times I've had hate mail and hate stuff done and everything like that. It just comes with the territory, but it shouldn't, Larry. It's just wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. And I think Paul Krugman should sit there and look at himself very carefully and think, is this the type of argument he wants to use to put his views forward? And if it is, he's just a very sad man who, unfortunately, doesn't like himself very much.
You know, it's funny putting Elon Musk together or juxtaposing Elon Musk with what Krugman was saying. It is interesting because Elon sort of said, what do the Democrats have left? They're the party of division and hate. It's all they got left. And I just thought it was ironic or something that here's Krugman writing whenever, Monday. I mean, it's just, this is pure hate. The stuff he wrote about the Laffer curve and
totally.
Look, down through the years, he's attacked all of us, you, me, Steve Moore, Ford. But it's just hatred stuff. In other words, it's not based on facts. As you say, he's a terrible economist. I don't care how many credentials he has. He's a terrible economist.
He is a bad economist.
But this is just kind of hate stuff. And, you know, I'm going to have to raise this a notch because I noticed, you know, when Joe Biden gets out there, he spews forth meanness, nothing but meanness, partisan meanness.
Exactly.
And, you know, many people have observed that Biden was supposed to be, remember, in the election campaign, he was going to be the unifying candidate. He has been most divisive president in recent memory. And a lot of people have written that on the left and the right.
Yeah, it's very true. He is that way, Larry. And the problem is that I've worked with Democrats over the years as much as I have Republicans. I'm an economist. I think we should have low-rate, broad-based, flat taxes, sound money, free trade, minimal regulations. That's the world I come from, and that's the world I believe in very much. And I welcome all the Democrats to join us. In fact, I was a Democrat, and I probably will be once again if I live to 130 once again. But it shouldn't be partisan hate. It should be what's good economics and how do we get back to good economics the way Reagan did it, the way Trump did it, the way Kennedy did it. Tax cuts, sound, and low inflation, sound money. But Krugman doesn't think that's the right way to argue. He thinks the right way to argue is call you names and accuse you of being a racist. That's even the worst. That's pretty low.
Yeah, the Buffalo thing, the whole thing is just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I guess it's a sign of the times. You don't have anything good to say, that's where you go. They're losing the battle. The country is rejecting these far-left policies, Art, so I think that's part of it. And this is, you know, a hate-filled way to get back at it. Arthur, for the good of all of us, let us move on. I want to talk to you about some budget plans in a minute, but today I think the Dow is off 1,200 points. I'm not sure what the last quotes were. What do you make of this? Sometimes this stock, here, 1,164 points as of the latest reading. What do you make of that, Art? It's been kind of a rough year for the stock market. What's it telling us?
Well, I think the market is forecasting a bad economy. I think it's forecasting a recession, if not something even worse than a recession. The policies that have been espoused, Larry, the budget explosion, all of this stuff, the proposing tax increases, the inflation causing huge capital gains tax increases, pushing people into higher brackets, corporations especially, under depreciation of capital. It's a massive tax increase without legislation. And by Biden using all the executive orders is making it very hard for people to do business. I mean, just look what's happened with the baby formula if you want to see executive orders from the FDA. So I think the market's forecasting a downturn. The hope is that the cavalry is coming, but even in the best of times, Larry, the cavalry will take quite some time to get here. Let's say we win the elections in 2022. Then we still have 2 years of Biden with executive orders and all this other nonsense. Then you get the election of 2024. Then the president takes office in January of 2025. Then you have 6-8 months before you get some of the big policies put in. And then if they're not phased, you can't expect a real return of this economy until early or mid 2026, even if the cavalry were coming as fast as they possibly could. I mean, elections have consequences. And unfortunately, this election has really bad consequences for our economy. Biden being president is a huge mistake of the American electorate, and hopefully we can correct it as fast as possible.
I mean, the hope would be, I think, that if you get a Republican sweep in the House and Senate, at least, Art, they will be able to stop the worst stuff. I mean, for example, with the help of Democrat, by the way, I am a former Democrat myself, but with the help of Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, for example, we were able to kill the bill. And killing the bill not only meant killing $5 trillion in spending and so forth, but it also meant the bill was trying to reverse the Trump tax cuts, which you have said is really responsible for what limited prosperity we've been able to have in the last 2 years. So
yes,
Congress can kill the worst stuff. I agree with you about the regulatory branch and the executive branch, but at least Congress can maybe stop massive spending and higher taxes.
Yeah. Let me just say what I hope really happens here, Larry, is when this election does take place and the results are, as you and I think they're, we have welcome open arms to Democrats to come and join us, to work with us to create the prosperity. I think a bipartisan working on legislation would be wonderful, and you shouldn't have this militant 100% in one direction just going on. I think that's really important. And, you know, what we've shown in the book, Taxes Have Consequences, which I did co-author with Brian Dimitrovic and Gene Sinkfield, which I did. The last chapter is your bill, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and how wonderful it was, how it led to increased revenues, how it led to greater prosperity, led to drops in the unemployment rate, drops in the poverty rate. All of that occurred as a result of Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And, you know, that's really important to have that documented and looked at. You saw Kevin Hassett's and Goodspeed's book, article in the Wall Street Journal. Just terrific article on that. We need to get that information out and hopefully convince Democrats that they can come and join us and we can create a prosperous society for all of us.
So, okay, so I'm still concerned that the cavalry's coming. I just want the cavalry to have the right strategy. In this case, economic strategy. It will need It will need other strategies too. We have to have good generals, but we also have to have good infantry to carry this out. Now, Newt Gingrich and Russell Vogt and myself and others were putting together a balanced budget idea. All right, I'm not going to give every detail. But it's a pro-growth. I think of it as a supply-side 4% growth budget, trim spending, you know, crazy stuff like $160 billion of unemployment insurance was done, but fraud, never even got to the unemployed people. Trim spending, low taxes, roll back the regulations, a sound dollar, curb the deficits, curb the debt. To me, that would be a high-growth, low-inflation budget of the type that Gingrich did 25 years ago. So what do you think about that, and what should we be thinking about to put in this budget? Because we're going to try to, you know, get something out on paper in the next month or two.
Yeah, let me just say, Larry, that if it's good doing over 10 years, it's good doing over 2 years. You need to get this budget process under control very, very quickly. We have all of this ridiculous spending that has gone on here. I mean, what is $6, $7, $8 trillion in the last 5 years or so? It's been there. You need to get that out of there now. You need to reduce spending from where it is now way down below where it is. You need to find revenue sources to reduce the national debt. I would suggest a tax amnesty program. I would suggest that medical transparency can increase GDP by 8 or 9% and also save huge amounts of money in the process. I mean, I think those are there. You have all sorts of other things that can be done. Merit pay for politicians is something that really is important. You know, people love doing things that benefit themselves, and I don't mind politicians making money as long as all the rest of us do too. So merit pay for politicians, that would be terrific, and I can go through school choice, another thing that's really good to get in I would put all of that in yours, and especially for inflation, Larry, I would look at monetary policy very carefully and seeing if there isn't a way of reestablishing a monetary standard that would keep inflation away and put it on an automatic rule so that inflation never comes back again like it has. I think all of those will help your bill enormously.
How about workfare? Let's put in workfare, restore the workfare program from the Gingrich-Clinton years, which the Bidens have thrown out. And Arthur, how about some good old-fashioned flat tax reform? Because I want this to be a growth budget. This is not going to be some root canal without Novocaine, you know, Paleolithic 1950s conservative type stuff where they actually think they're going to raise taxes to cut budget deficits. Let's go back and get the top rate back to 28%, where Ronald Reagan left it. Let's get the corporate rate down to 15%, which is where we wanted it.
Yes, sir. Low-rate, broad-based flat tax, Larry, will do it. I mean, this is what Jerry Brown ran on. It's Republican and it's Democrat. You want to tax all forms of income equally, not have different ones. So increases in unrealized capital gains should be taxed. But if there are decreases in unrealized capital gains, it should be rebated. All income in a Haig-Simon definition, one low-rate, broad-based flat tax, and you will spur this economy to fly to the moon and bring prosperity to all of us and be able to really live together in prosperity for a long, long time.
We had almost 4% growth, Art, from World War II to the year 2000. And that included the terrible 70s.
Exactly.
We had almost 4% growth. I think we could do it again with good policies. I'll give you the last word on that one.
Oh, we can do better than that. We can do a lot better than that, Larry. Honestly, we can do an enormously good job if you want to do the total reform in what you and Newt are working on and vote just is wonderful. I'd love to see a copy of what you got and make some comments. But you know, what you're doing is the Lord's working.
We're going to pull you in. We're going to pull you in,
and you're doing.
We're going to use your estimating model too.
Love it.
We want the Laffer imprimatur on this. New York Times columnist notwithstanding. We want you. Uncle Sam wants you, our Laffer. Leave it there.
Thank you very much,
Terrific
Larry.
stuff. All best. Talk soon.